quantity, nanogram, or these are very complicated molecules. Hormones are very complicated molecules, and their functioning is also very complicated, because this is not meant to work on the entire tissue or entire cells. These work on very specific cells in very specific manner, such as if a person runs for some time, and in the course of exercise, doing exercise, so the muscles need more energy, muscles need more blood circulation. So to increase the blood circulation, the heart has to pump more blood. So the endocrine system in the adrenals, they send the signal to the brain that, okay, let me produce more hormones so that the heartbeat should be increased. So pumping of more blood to supply energy to the tissues, to the muscles, is controlled by these adrenals. So in specific condition, these hormones are released, and it controls the very specific target tissues. So here you can see the endocrine system. Endocrine system consists of pituitary, pineal, thyroid, thymus, adrenals, pancreas, testes, and ovaries. And circulation of endocrine system, endocrine hormones are through the blood. So blood and plasma both take part into its transmission from one part to the another part and to reach its target cells. These are secreted in a very small quantity, and the target cells, they respond this very specific kind of chemicals in a very specific manner. That is, you can say the small hormones, a small amount of the hormone can increase the heart rate from very normal to very excited state. They dilate the pupil. If the person is afraid, automatically your body temperature will be increasing, or you will be getting sweat. So these kind of respond to stimulus, these are also controlled by endocrine systems. Now the thing is that, do our thoughts affect our endocrine system, or our endocrine system, the hormones in the endocrine system, affect our thought? And this is very interesting question, because the science does not provide any answer. Rather, it provides the answer, how does it work? What does it work? But in a complicated manner, does both are interconnected, or can we control this under our will, yes or no? So the philosophy gives its answer, because these are also very well studied cases. And it is said that the thoughts are very complicated process, and sometimes our thought generate the kind of functioning in our body that is calming down our nerves. Calming down our nerves means calming down or regulate the speed of release and transfer of neurotransmitters into our blood, and the blood supplying the kind of neurotransmitter to the tissues or the target organs. Now, the thing is that here, some of the chemistry you can appreciate here, the based on the kind of actions the neurotransmitter does, the kind of neurons are categorized in the following sections. Like glutamate are the glutamatergic neurons, gamma aminobutyric acid or GABA is the GABAergic neurons, acetylcholine are the belong to the acetylcholinergic neurons, serotonin is the sleep hormone, relax hormone that is a part of serotonergic neurons, dopamine is dopaminergic neurons, histamine is towards that is called the allergy hormone. The when you have some allergy kind of thing, then histamine is released. So histaminergic neurons. Now every neuron system, you will appreciate that energic term is added. Now why this energic term is added? This energy is created by our own thoughts. It is a very complicated statement, because if you go in the details of the scientific terms, you won't find any kind of experiment that can prove this. But it is said that the thoughts are the very complicated interplay of the chemicals inside the brain. So what kind of thoughts should come to your mind, you can control it at your will. Though the modern science says that thoughts cannot be controlled, but yoga says that thoughts are a kind of energy. You can control the kind of thoughts that should keep on working in your mind, and the kind of thought that should come in your mind, and at very controlled will, you can allow or you can reject the kind of thought working in your brain. Now this all neuron types, the energetic kind of the energy aspect of the neurons, or the neurotransmitters that should work at a very specific kind of condition, is actually triggered by the thoughts. Not in every process, but most of it. So the physiological process which are not at our will, that is the body functions, which is an automatic process. So we are not going into that part, but some kind of thought that creates the stress, some kind of thought that create stress, fear, or some kind of depression, or some kind of very psychological phenomena which is very intense. And it is also a kind of thing that if a person is under control, continuous state of stress, the pancreas start behaving abnormally. The pancreas are endocrine systems, and pancreas release the insulin, which regulates the metabolism of glucose in the body. So under prolonged stress, it has been seen that it creates the condition of diabetes. And it, nowadays the young people are also getting diabetes. So the when it is the person is diabetic, the glucose in the blood is not burnt uh, under the influence of insulin. The insulin production is hampered, and the body is given administration of additional insulin so that your blood sugar can be controlled. So this is kind of, and what is the stress? Stress is the prolonged kind of a thought that your mind is not able to uh, process well, because when you don't have the sufficient answer of your questions, or maybe you don't have the gyan, you cannot assimilate those thoughts and process in a very justified manner. But if you give your answers, continuously learn about the answer of the queries, of the doubts, and a kind of solutions to your problems, you are not in a kind of stress. So you are not in a kind of stress means you have managed, you have engineered the method to uh, to break down the condition of stress and make it a happy state, so that your pancreas are not under any kind of stress. So if it is not any under a kind of stress, the pancreas, the endocrine system works fine, and releases insulin in proper amount, so that blood glucose can be metabolized in a very smooth manner, in a natural manner. So this is one example. Likewise, other endocrine systems like thyroids or thymus or hypothalamus or pineal gland and adrenals, these are also controlled by your state of mind and psyche. Now the thing is that when the body uh, have under a very kind of subtle state of mind that has a balanced kind of thoughts, and it is also said that if a kind of thought that prolongs for a longer duration of time, something you can say, it exists for a day or two, or maybe a, a week, then it starts causing the same kind of release of chemicals, or the activates the neurons. The energy remains in your body, and the same kind of neurons are activated, continuous flow of those neurons, continuous uh, excitation of the chemicals, so that organs keep on working uh, for longer duration of time. That is called roughly you can say it is a state of stress, or is a state of discomfort, because your mind is not settled, and your body is also, the organs are also trying to get into equilibrium state, that is a subtle state. So there is an imbalance of thoughts. So how to achieve the subtle state of mind, so that these neurotransmitters should remain in a controlled movement of transportation through the neurons and through the body cells, so that it should perform nicely, so that your behavior becomes very balanced. It is actually the thoughts which come to your mind, and you have to see those thoughts, what kind of thoughts those are coming, and you have to categorize it, you have to define it. And when you define your thoughts, when you define your mind, when you define your thinking, when you categorize, okay, this kind of thought I should not bring in our mind, because it is affecting my body as well. So slowly and slowly you enter into a condition of meditation automatically. So this is how by arguments we can say that getting into a meditation is getting into a control, a channelized kind of thoughts that is soothing your neurotransmitters. And then the ultimate uh, effect is our behavioral pattern. And behavioral pattern which lasts for one small span of time is just a reaction. So now here we can say either you choose to react or you choose to respond. You have seen something irritable, or you have seen something offensive, or you have seen something not pleasant. You might react on it because you're not happy. You might get angry, you might get some, you might get sad, or you might be very violent at that. But the another part is that you can respond that okay, I do not like this, I cannot, I won't react, but I will respond in a some wise manner. So gaining a wisdom is also prolonged kind of thought in the right direction. So here you can just build on arguments from everyday life, from every thought process, and you have to actually watch your thoughts. That what kind of dust is coming, what kind of fragrance is coming. So the very simple method of watching your thoughts is choosing to respond rather than reacting. And slowly and slowly you will watch that your stress level is also coming. The people who are more reacting, they actually create a lot of stress, and lot of stress create a lot of channelized thoughts in a direction that is not good for your neurotransmitters or neurons, and the neurons keep on activating the same kind of tissues, and then your body organs get affected. So ultimately our goal is to gain a holistic health, and holistic health is it starts from a thought. When you go in the direction that you are given a lot of problems in day to day life by the time, and you will experience okay, this is a problem, or this is just a challenge, or this is just a condition. Maybe it's your perception, problem is big or small or little, or oh, it is just everyday life. So it is your perception. So slowly and slowly, when you gain wisdom, you define problems in your own method, and you'll find that there are no problems at all. These are just a kind of state of mind that tells you how to perceive that problem. When you gain wisdom, you define it in a very subtle manner, and then your behavior is also automatically improved, and you learn to respond than to react. So the little things which you can check in every day, and bit by bit your good behavior is built up. And as I said in the beginning, however adverse the condition is, the habit remains, it remains. So a nicer habit leads to your tranquility of mind, and that will be our ultimate goal. So this brings us to the end of this lecture. Thank you. This is beautiful atom in our campus, and we are having a lot of colors and photography these days. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Nilima. You really enlightened us with your knowledge of science. You raise one very big mystery for us. From long time, the philosophers and scientists, we are working on thoughts or behaviors versus the chemical changes. You raise a issue that whether chemical changes happen first or the thoughts comes first. So this is entirely needed to be a big discussion. Also, you give a nice solution for the stress and all the chemical changes which give you the stress and anxiety to every of us. So you said that how to watch the thought and to become a drashta is a nice solution for getting all the normal behavior or a good health, holistic health. So thank you, Dr. Nilima.
Thank you so much.
I would like to ask people who are watching us if you have any question or if you want to something want to ask with Dr. Nilima, you all are cordially invited.
So there are two questions. Uh, the first one is put by our honorable chief guest Pradhan sir, and he says that Ma'am, he's asking a question on, should we accept the concept of Hiranyagarbha, the sanctorium, that is, we are inside and made up of the reality, which is consciousness?
Oh, this is very big question. I'm still understanding this phenomena, Hiranyagarbha, and I would like to just say that
This
the
Just
universe
to
is.
this question is for
yes, this question was for Professor Pradhan sir. Sorry for the confusion, Dr.
Oh,
Nilima.
yeah, because
Okay.
this is very philosophical question, and I think
Yes, I
this
think
question must go to
Professor
Professor
Rajesh can
Pradhan.
answer better because
Uh,
I'm not very knowledgeable person in philosophy. But I'm trying to, because whenever I take on any topic of philosophy, my natural structure of brain tries to analyze it from the chemical point of view, chemistry point of view, and I'm trying to find the middle ground so that I can understand it. Sometimes it is very challenging. So far as I have understood that Hiranyagarbha thing, it is the universe kind of the universe entity, and it is as simple as that. That if you take a drop of a ocean and test it, the chemical structure of the water, the kind of minerals in that drop of water, you can know about the chemistry of the entire ocean because that drop. So the human being also is a drop in the ocean of universe. So if you understand yourself, you can understand the entire cosmos. So the thing is that there is one very interesting, but I am still not very uh, in a very good stage of understanding that there is one term aura. Have you heard this word aura?
yes.
Aura. So aura is the existence of a kind of energy around you, and it is said that when you are having a very positive kind of energy, what is that? That you are filled with positive thoughts. That the thoughts which makes you happy, makes you very subtle, very calm, and a very nice kind of physical existence. So this
Got it.
aura is nothing but the energy extensions of this nervous system. There is in one book, Dr. Rajesh actually showed me that there are some nadis, and nadis are some like 72,000 kind of nadis, and many of those neurons that exist inside of body, and many of those extending outside the body. So you are under constant recipient kind of thing, or continuous receptor. You have all around you, your aura actually acts as a constant receptor. Now the thing is that if you can become an emitter, now here the interesting thing is that if you see this kind of chemicals, the first one is glutamate or glutamatergic neurons. The glutamate is actually kind of excitationary neuromolecule which enhances the rate of reaction of any process that excites, right? And another one is gamma aminobutyric acid, GABA. It is inhibitory, like just slow down the reaction. That is just stop the reaction. So both are opposite to one another. Now the thing is that if you are constantly receiving the kind of signals from outside, that is kind of because one thought is very contagious, and somebody put a thought and it enters into your mind, and your mind is under some analysis, and you are creating some kind of your kind of thoughts. You're processing, you're analyzing, you are continuously under working, right? So you can at your will say, I need glutamate to enhance this process, or I need to activate the GABA to inhibit this process. It is your under your will. So the
Okay.
kind of thing which you want to receive is not at your will, because you are constantly receiving. But now if you train your thoughts that you want to be radiating, then you have to increase the energy of your thoughts, that your vibrations should radiate out. Your good vibrations should radiate out so that the goodness of your thoughts should influence others. And the thing is that the same kind of energy is also there in the bad thoughts. It is your will which kind of thoughts you choose. Now the thing is that you have said the Hiranyagarbha, that is a pulsating universe. Okay, if a person is radiating, person is vibrating, the entire humankind, or maybe whatever the thoughts have bigger energy than the human entity itself. Thoughts never die. Even if the person creating that thoughts die, because human life is limited, but the thoughts have constant existence. So none of the thoughts die. So it is our duty to create the thoughts that should construct, right? That should construct. And the constantly vibrating thoughts is the part of this universe, that is actually the nature of the cosmos. That's why, that's how the everything is existing, and everything interplay in a kind of. And then you can also define this in terms of destiny that comes to you. I think this is just my
Thank
understanding.
you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nilima. We have another question for you, but we also have a little bit of time restriction here. But I'll just go ahead and ask this question, and let's try to conclude it. The question is, internal disturbances are expressed in outer behavior, but can correcting the outer behavior, we can correct the internal disturbances to a certain extent? I would
Yes, I
request
think.
people to be on mute so that we can hear Dr. Nilima very clearly.
Actually, can you ask? I just could not listen the second line.
Yeah, the second line was, but can correcting the outer behavior, we can correct the internal disturbances to certain extent?
Yes, this is under our will. This is under our will. Exactly, because I said that some the nervous system, the action of the neurons. I will just stick to my lecture only. Some are, body functions are involuntary, that is not under our will, like breathing, heartbeat, aging, growing, and the other kind of body functions, digestion. These are not under our will. But the thing is that the second part of the nervous system is voluntary, that is completely under our will. That is our movement, locomotion, and some of the people say that thoughts are involuntary, it comes to our mind automatically. But what I believe, that thoughts are voluntary. Whatever comes inside your mind, you can control that, and whatever goes out, you can control that. Now when the thoughts are processing inside your brain, obviously these chemical and chemistry is in a complex interplay, that some thoughts give you a lot of happiness and energy, and your glutamate is on high, right? So glutamagic neurons are active and you're happy. It is just expressed in terms of your behavior or reaction or response. But some kind of thoughts that, okay, you go on a constant depression or stress, those like GABergic neurons are on high, and you restrict your behavior, you restrict your movement, you restrict your action or response, or you react in a way so that it is said that you get shut down. So it is completely under our will, that behavior, if your thoughts are generated, because it is a thing that when we engineer on our thoughts, that how it should move, how it should be created, how it should radiate, when we keep on controlling this thing, and it comes from practice, long practice. Abhyasen tu kante vairagyan cha grihate. This is the slok from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Asanshayam mahabaho manodunigraham chalam abhyasen tu kante vairagyan cha grihate. So abhyas, constant exercise, constant practice, you can actually control it. So the outside behavior is automatically controlled. It is the interplay of your own thoughts. This is actually, I don't know if I have answered it properly or not.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nilima. I hope it answers the query being asked, and it was really nicely explained. There's another question from Mr. Siddharth Mohan. His question is there any difference between a male and female brain?
Male and female brain are different, because they are logically designed by the nature to perform different actions. Functioning is also different, and on technical ground there are so many interesting aspects that it can make another lecture. Because if you compare the weight size of the brain, weight in numbers of grams, the woman brain is little lighter, few grams. Male brain is little heavier. And in terms of function, it is different. A woman can, because brain has two hemispheres, right brain and left brain, and women can uh, use both the part of the hemisphere simultaneously. But the male can use only one part of the hemisphere at one time, another part of hemisphere at another time. So half of the hemisphere is under shutdown and half of the hemisphere is under control. Now, if we don't take this in a very over analysis manner, this is constantly designed that the women are more creative, their energy is more vibrant. Male are more focused to do any particular kind of job. That is that if half part of the brain is working, then they focus much better than women. And women can focus, they are multitasking usually, and this has come from their own behavior because they have many responsibilities right from the beginning. So they focus on particular kind of things, at the same time they are multitasking as well. So their behavioral or some kind of their own actions or their lifestyle that has, through the course of evolution, when human came on this existence through evolution from Homo erectus to Homo arthropithecus and through this Homo sapiens, then Homo sapiens sapiens, and it is constantly evolving. So this pattern is also coming into more and more expression. So this is the fundamental difference of functioning of the human brain. But if you kind of, the thing is like capacity, what kind of capacity, women are able to memorize larger list of things. And also the women brain is about that right brain and left brain has different functions, and working simultaneously at both the things, sometimes it sees it say that okay, they intermix everything.
Okay.
They
So
tend to complicate. But the male brain is like they just go boundary and
mm,
boundary. That's why
Okay.
most of
Okay.
the religious books are created by men that actually tells you about the boundary. And women are like, okay, I don't like boundaries, I just want to go free. So women don't like religion things. So this is the aspect. And yes, most of the languages are created by women, but most of the grammar are
it's
constructed by
created by men, right? So I
this.
think there's a very broad level of
Yes,
explanation if we go about it.
another lecture. Just
It's,
another topic,
yeah.
another lecture. Sometimes it is funny, sometimes it is not. But on the serious note, that okay, they are designed to function differently. They are completely different species, and you can say that there should be a coordination, right? There should be a
Yeah,
understanding is the ultimate wisdom. That's how our thought is. If you don't understand, then you create stress. If you understand, there is no stress.
that's
So
true.
this is our purpose, the purpose of learning and teaching.
So with that, Dr. Nilima, I really thank you so much for answering our questions so patiently. And with that, I would have to move on to our previous speaker, Professor Pradhan, for the question. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
I would request Dr. Pradhan to please turn on your audio. And your question is, should we accept the concept of Hiranyagarbha, that is, we are inside and made up of the reality, which is consciousness?
Okay, am I audible
Yes, sir.
now? Audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, the concept of uh, Hiranyagarbha is basically a concept relating to the cosmic aspect of reality. And here, reality means consciousness. So, in a sense, perhaps Professor Nilima is right that consciousness has its cosmic aspect, and that is expected um, through the concept of Hiranyagarbha. It is Garbha, it is in the sense a womb of the cosmic consciousness. So, in that sense, Vedantic thinkers have always emphasized on the cosmic aspect of consciousness through the concept of Hiranyagarbha. But everything, if we reduce to chemical analysis, I think that doesn't give any proper meaning of these concepts. So chemical analysis is, in a sense, good in its own aspect, but it should not really swallow up the philosophical meaning or the conceptual meaning of the concepts. So in that sense, I must tell you that when we understand a concept like mind or consciousness, every time we cannot go back to our